welcome to the second installment of the BRSCC Mazda Super Series. For the first time ever, our drivers are gracing the Welsh countryside here at Pembrey Circuit. Now, as a guest drive and a bit of a surprise to the paddock, we have Brian Chandler, a 2015 Mark I Championship winner, joining us here and starting on pole position. Now, we've got Simon Fleet here starting in second position. As you all know, got 3 out of 3 podiums at Brands Hatch, so we're quite excited to see how these guys are going to get on. The track is very warm. It's going to cause them a little bit of difficulties out there, but it's going to be a fun one to watch. So Andy, straight over to you.
Yeah, thanks Lindsay. Well, it is a baking hot Easter weekend that greets us here in South Wales, and as you said, Brian Chandler and Simon Fleet sharing the front row for this one. James Kelly's back with Joe Marshall-Burks on row 2, with Jeremy Crook, Clive Powells, Alex Miller and Matt Pickford rounding out the top 8. Then it's Darren Kell, Declan Lee, Cameron Thompson and Liz Walton to round out the field. Well, this is a circuit that, as Lindsay was alluding to, most of the drivers have very little experience of. They may have done the odd track day here, maybe the odd race, but it's certainly the circuit they have the least racing experience of. That could throw up a few surprises. Race 1 underway here at Pembrey then, and Brian Chandler makes a good start from pole position, as you would expect from a man of his experience. Simon Fleet looking to try and slot into second place, but this first tight right-hander at Hatchets, you really need to be on the inside line. Simon is on the outside though. That could lead to some pressure being applied by James Kell on the run down towards turn 2 at Spitfires. On board with Matt Pickford, looking back at Alex Miller there and the 15 car of Clive Powells. Wheel to wheel for second though, into the left-hander at Debenny, and Simon Fleet hanging on for the time being. Then James Kell will be keen to get on with this though and get past Simon Fleet to see if he's got the pace to go after the race leader Chandler. Down towards the next left-hander they go. Oh, and that's Jeremy Crook. Jeremy Crook on the grass and bang into the side of James Kell. Simon Fleet unfortunately caught up in that as well, and Jeremy Crook with a big hit there into the completely blindsided James Kell and Simon Fleet. They would have had no idea that was coming, and that had all the hallmarks of a brake failure or a throttle that was stuck open. That I don't think was a driving error there by Jeremy Crook. He's an experienced enough driver to know that you need to slow down for the corners, and I think as soon as he realised there was a problem, he bailed out onto the grass on the inside line and unfortunately collided heavily with 2 of our potential podium finishers. Now though, it looks as though all 3 of them may well be out of the race. Hands coming out of the cockpits because the safety car, no, in fact the red flag is being thrown. The race is being suspended straight away, and so unfortunately, before we've even got our first racing lap around Pembrey underway, the race is being called to a halt so that the marshals can remove the cars from the scene. Here's a replay. You can see the smoky Crook in the background, and oh, that was a big hit as he went into the side of James Kell. Simon Fleet may have got away with that without too much damage. The same, sadly, cannot be said of Jeremy Crook, and his day and possibly weekend may be over. Well, really disappointing stuff there from... Well, really disappointing stuff there then for Jeremy Crook, Simon Fleet and James Kell, none of whom will take the restart. Brian Chandler, therefore, has the front of the grid all to himself as for the second time this afternoon. The red lights go out and we are away and racing at Pembrey with a slightly depleted grid now, sadly. Not what we wanted to see at the start of the weekend. Looking on board again with Matt Pickford there. He's got a good shot at getting a podium position here. And in fact, he's already challenging for that podium around the outside of the fast-starting Clive Powells. Clive, though, actually starting 1 position in front of Matt. Matt trying to leapfrog him into the first 2 corners. These 2 tight right-handers to start off the lap, then into the left-hander, the quick left-hander at Debenny, which will be, I'd say, almost flat out in full racing conditions here. Alex Miller there, the number 7 for Bourne Motorsport, attacking Clive Powells on the run through these quick left-handers. Down towards the S's they will go. Hard on the brakes now. This is the scene of the incident on the initial start. Thankfully, everybody's safely through by the looks of it on this occasion. And then through the long right-hander down towards Brooklands. It's a short, sharp and very high-speed lap this, which means that slipstreaming comes into play quite a lot. We should see lots of close racing action. It's a shame we've lost a few drivers here before the racing really got underway. On board with Matt Pickford, that's Darren Kell getting it all wrong, coming out of the Brooklands hairpin though, and coming under pressure from Cameron Thompson in the blue and silver car, who looks to the inside, into the daunting right-hander at Woodlands. This is a really difficult part of the circuit to run side by side through, and then through Honda Curve, the final turn out onto the start-finish line, the park straight, where it will be Brian Chandler that leads the opening lap of the race, no doubt about that, with Joseph Marshall-Burks in second position. The fight really is for third on back, with Clive Powells, for the time being, fending off Alex Miller and Matt Pickford. Matt tried that outside line down here at Hatchets on the opening lap, and it didn't really work. He lost a bit of ground. He's ended up dropping down to 5th rather than moving into 3rd. Here is the race leader, Brian Chandler. He's on to the final lap of the first race now. It's been a very straightforward race by MX-5 standards, but in this heat, and again on a circuit that even Brian won't have a huge amount of experience at, it's still been a positive and a strong run here from the PC Cars Motorsport driver. And hat-trick is looking very doable, I'd say. Wales. Clearly a happy hunting ground for him as a country, isn't it, with those 3 wins he had at Anglesey last year. Right now on his way to win number 1 of, he hopes, 3 here at Pembrey. But that's certainly not for certain. It depends, I guess, on whether the likes of Simon Fleet and James Kell can get out for the next race. But even if they can, they'll be starting from the back because the grid positions for the next race are based on the result from this one. So Brian Chandler will be on pole position as long as he gets around these final 2 corners in one piece, whilst Kell and Fleet and of course Jeremy Crook as well will all be starting from the back of the grid. However, we'll deal with that later because for now it's all about Brian Chandler, who's about to take his 4th MX-5 Super Series victory, his 1st of 2019 though. He crosses the start-finish line, sees the checkered flag and wins the opening race here from Pembrey. It was a slow final lap, so Joe Marshall-Burks is going to be a bit closer to him than he had been earlier on in the race. The winning margin just over 5.2 seconds in the end. And for 3rd, it will be Alex Miller. A brilliant drive that from Alex. He really earned that, overtaking Matt Pickford and Clive Powell during the race. So it's Chandler, Burks and Miller your podium men. Then Matt Pickford and Clive Powell round out the top 5. Cameron Thompson, Darren Kell and Liz Walton are next. Then Declan Lee, Simon Fleet, James Kell, all non-finishers. Jeremy Crook was excluded as a result of contact on the initial start to the race.
Brian, that was a well-deserved win. You were out there by yourself, but it must have slowed down a bit after the restart.
Yeah, the cars was hot, it's hot out here, and to be fair, there weren't really nothing to push for, so it was just circulating. It was, obviously, we've built a new car for Sam Tatler, so I thought I'd come and shake it down this weekend and see what it's like, and it seems to be okay, so yeah, well done to the boys back at the workshop for building a good car.
Race 2 is about to get underway here at Pembrey for the Super Series, and the temperatures are still very high on track, which means a lot more attention is going to have to be paid to conserving their tyres. But we have Brian Chandler back on pole position. He won race 1 yesterday. He's going to be able to do it again today. We'll have to wait and see. So Andy, straight on over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Well, identical conditions to yesterday, really, and a very familiar sight at the front of the grid. Brian Chandler with Joseph Marshall-Burks on row 1. Familiar because that's the order in which they finished the previous race. Alex Miller and Matt Pickford are next. Clive Powell, Cameron Thompson, Darren Kell and Liz Walton rounded out the finishers from yesterday's race. Then it's Declan Lee and Simon Fleet, and James Kell and Jeremy Crook will await and see exactly what order they're in and whether they're all there, because there was quite a hefty repair job to be done, particularly for Jeremy Crook and James Kell's cars. The lights are on though. We're about to go racing again here at Pembrey. It looks like Declan Lee is starting from the pit lane, but starting from pole position is Brian Chandler, and not a great start actually, so pulling alongside him already on the outside is Joseph Marshall-Burks, and Alex Miller going with him as well. And can Marshall-Burks snatch the lead into the first corner? They're 3 abreast, in fact. Miller to the outside as well, wheel to wheel out of the turn. The momentum is on the outside line there with Marshall-Burks, and he might have just got his nose in front. I think he has. Brian Chandler trying to fight back but can't do it, so Joseph Marshall-Burks gets the early lead. Chandler in 2nd, Miller in 3rd, and I think this man, Matt Pickford, is in 4th place. So down to the S's for the first time, and Chandler in fact now having to defend from Miller. This was not in the script for the race 1 winner. Then it's Clive Powell's and Cameron Thompson side by side for 5th. I think the silver and green number 15 of Powell's will hold on to that, which indeed he does. But that was a very, very entertaining start to the race. Now I can see in the background that Simon Fleet is there. I can't, however, see James Kell, so I don't know whether or not he's on the grid, and if he is, maybe starting from the pit lane. Let's see. I think he might be out in the spare car. I think that red car in the pack is number 33, James Kell. We'll get a look at that in a moment or two as it comes down towards us. But there is Simon Fleet. You can see he's out there. He's run out of pink wheels, obviously, now. He's had to replace that rear left with a much more boring white wheel. But he is still out there, and the car looks like it's in one piece, more or less. So across the line we come then. At the end of the opening lap, it is Joseph Marshall-Burks that leads, and Brian Chandler 2nd. And now I think we've got a real race on our hands, because Marshall-Burks, you sense, probably could have gone with Brian Chandler had he got off to a better start in the first race, or restart anyway, but never really got the chance to. Now though, he's in front and he can control the pace of the race a little bit more. And as we saw in race 1, despite the slipstreaming opportunities that this circuit presents, it's not easy to overtake here in Pembrey, so Chandler is going to have his work cut out to get that lead away. Looking back at the Clive Powell's and Cameron Thompson battle. That's already using a touch over the leading trio, making their way out of the S's for the 2nd time. With the number 99 car, Joseph Marshall-Burks out in front. He has a race victory in this equivalent race from Brands Hatch last time out, the 2nd race of the weekend. That, though, came after a mistake for James Kell, just after a safety car restart, handed him the race lead. Well, this time, he's done it all on his own merit with a brilliant start, but Brian Chandler is already starting to turn the screw now, isn't he? He's applying the pressure, trying to retake this race lead through the dauntingly quick right-hander at Woodlands. Easy flat out in one of these well-planted Mark III MX-5s. Looking back here from Brian Chandler's car, we've put the rear-facing camera on his car because we expected to see lots of cars behind him, but now there is one car in front of him, and he doesn't like that, does he? Look, he's trying to get this lead away again, trying to weave around and distract Joe Marshall-Burks as they head down the pit straight, but Marshall-Burks having none of it, gets into the corner well. Then it's Alex Miller third, Pickford still fourth, I think. I did see Simon Fleet was starting to cut his way through the traffic though, and he's, I think, already into sixth place, but Brian Chandler attacking for the race lead again. Clobbers the curb through the left-hander at DeBenny, and then through this curving left-hander behind the paddock into the S's. Good overtaking opportunity, this one of the best on the circuit, but he's not close enough to do it. Marshall-Burks is quick enough through the preceding couple of corners to actually pull a few car lengths advantage now over Chandler. He takes a much tighter line there through the second part of the S's. It's interesting, actually, we're watching the drivers there all weekend, and there are a couple of ways to attack that sequence of corners. Some of them prioritising the entry to the S's, and some of them prioritising the exit down towards Brooklands, and then onto this long speedway straight, where the speed, as the name suggests, does start to pick up. Settles into that nice rhythm he had going before that side-by-side exchange. He's probably got the pace to close back in on the race leader. Matt Pickford is loving seeing this in front of him as well, because he's now a part of this too. And the last thing that Miller needs to do is make any more mistakes and start coming under serious pressure from the yellow car behind him. He needs to get his head down, forget what just happened, forget that he almost had a race victory in his clutches there, and just needs to try and find the pace that he had earlier on. Both of these drivers set their laps, their fastest laps, inside the first 4 or 5 laps of the race, as you'd expect with the tyre wear starting to take effect now in the latter part of the race, but their relative pace is still very, very close indeed. If anything, Miller fractionally the quicker of the two. Chandler does have the fastest lap, 1 minute 13.6, which is about half a second quicker than Miller has gone at any part of this race, but more consistent pace for Miller means that in the second half of the race, Chandler just can't shake him off. Look at the way that Miller has already gapped Pickford again and is closing back down on the race leader. He's making a few mistakes though at this corner, Honda curve, which is probably one of the more challenging corners on the circuit in fairness, but he's just been missing apexes. That's a bit more like it. Doesn't quite hit the apex the way in which Chandler did. You saw the dust being kicked up from the race leader's car as he just cut the corner slightly. Not enough to get in trouble for exceeding track limits, I don't think, but just trying to carry as much speed through the turn as possible. It's all to no avail, though, because Miller is right back on him again. Tries this switchback manoeuvre out of Hatchett's. Chandler saw it coming. That was actually better execution that time for Alex Miller, though. There was no sideways action that time. And had Chandler not quite got over to defend in time, that might just have worked. But Chandler is looking the scrappier, isn't he? He's using more curb. He's locked up the brakes a few times. He's getting a bit sideways. Miller, despite the mistake he made immediately after losing the lead a lap or so ago, really hasn't put a foot wrong in this one. And maybe just could have been a bit more robust with his defence when he did get the lead away from Chandler. If he'd have got over to the inside line at the S's, he might just have been able to fend off the race one winner. Brooklands though, and a good exit from here could set him up for a slipstream down the back straight, but neither of them made the apex then. There were several feet between their cars and the apex curb. You don't really want to hit that apex curve though, because it's quite a robust curve at Brooklands, and it can actually unsettle the car and do more harm than good. So they're doing right not to hit it, but they need to get a bit closer to it than that. Now through Honda, they're both inch perfect through there, and we're going to get a good view hopefully here from Chandler as we go on to the final lap of the race of the run that Alex Miller will have. Now it could be now or never for Alex Miller. Down towards the Hatchett's hairpin, goes to the outside line. Is he going to try and go right round the outside again, or will he try the switchback? He's going to try the outside line, because this is what worked for him a lap or two ago. He can't do it though. Chandler shows him the edge of the road, and Alex Miller stays in line behind. So that's one possible overtaking opportunity gone. The next one is down at the S's, but I think Chandler's had a better run through DeBenny there, and possibly will be far enough in front that he doesn't feel the need to defend. Let's see. Yeah, look at that, Miller not close enough to attack, so no defensive action taken by Chandler on this occasion. And now Miller is running out of opportunities, because the next right-hander at Brooklands, the tight right-hander coming up, is possibly the last realistic overtaking opportunity. He takes a wide sweeping line through the S's, trying to carry momentum down into the next right-hander. I don't think he's going to be able to do enough here. Brian Chandler has driven a brilliant race. He's managed this well, despite possibly not being the faster of the two in the second half of the race, his racecraft has shone through, and Brian and Alex have both put on a fabulous show here in race number 2 of the weekend, but it's not quite going to be enough for Alex. He will get his best finish in his Super Series career with second place, but the victory for the second time this weekend goes to Brian Chandler, and a brilliant, entertaining scrap from the two of them all race long. Miller is second, Matt Pickford gets a podium, he'll be delighted with that, with Joseph Marshall-Burks not so happy with 4th place. Clive Powell's, is 5th, then Darren Kell and Cameron Thompson. The retirements from that race, Simon Fleet and James Kell, whilst Jeremy Crook didn't start. The damage from yesterday's race keeping him out of this one.
Alex, it seems like Wales is doing you a favour.
Yeah, I think I'll come here a bit more often. It's great race, really enjoyed that. If I can stay on the back of Brian, I must be doing all right. So, yeah, pleased with that, very pleased.
I was going to say, you actually managed to pip him at one point.
Yeah, a couple of corners. I think I gave him a shock though, so I think that made him put his foot down a little bit more, but never mind there. So, no, great, really pleased with second, really pleased.
Race 2 is about to get underway here at Pembrey for the Super Series, and the temperatures are still very high on track, which means a lot more attention is going to have to be paid to conserving their tyres. But we have Brian Chandler back on pole position. He won race 1 yesterday. He's going to be able to do it again today. We'll have to wait and see. So Andy, straight on over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lyndsay. Well, identical conditions to yesterday, really, and a very familiar sight at the front of the grid. Brian Chandler with Joseph Marshall-Burks on row 1. Familiar because that's the order in which they finished the previous race. Alex Miller and Matt Pickford are next. Clive Powell, Cameron Thompson, Darren Kell and Liz Walton rounded out the finishers from yesterday's race. Then it's Declan Lee and Simon Fleet, and James Kell and Jeremy Crook will await and see exactly what order they're in and whether they're all there, because there was quite a hefty repair job to be done, particularly for Jeremy Crook and James Kell's cars. The lights are on though. We're about to go racing again here at Pembrey. It looks like Declan Lee is starting from the pit lane, but starting from pole position is Brian Chandler, and not a great start actually, so pulling alongside him already on the outside is Joseph Marshall-Burks, and Alex Miller going with him as well. And can Marshall-Burks snatch the lead into the first corner? They're 3 abreast, in fact. Miller to the outside as well, wheel to wheel out of the turn. The momentum is on the outside line there with Marshall-Burks, and he might have just got his nose in front. I think he has. Brian Chandler trying to fight back but can't do it, so Joseph Marshall-Burks gets the early lead. Chandler in second, Miller in third, and I think this man, Matt Pickford, is in 4th place. So down to the S's for the first time, and Chandler in fact now having to defend from Miller. This was not in the script for the race 1 winner. Then it's Clive Powell's and Cameron Thompson side by side for 5th. I think the silver and green number 15 of Powell's will hold on to that, which indeed he does. But that was a very, very entertaining start to the race. Now I can see in the background that Simon Fleet is there. I can't, however, see James Kell, so I don't know whether or not he's on the grid, and if he is, maybe starting from the pit lane. Let's see. I think he might be out in the spare car. I think that red car in the pack is number 33, James Kell. We'll get a look at that in a moment or two as it comes down towards us. But there is Simon Fleet. You can see he's out there. He's run out of pink wheels, obviously, now. He's had to replace that rear left with a much more boring white wheel. But he is still out there, and the car looks like it's in one piece, more or less. So across the line we come then. At the end of the opening lap, it is Joseph Marshall-Burks that leads, and Brian Chandler second. And now I think we've got a real race on our hands, because Marshall-Burks, you sense, probably could have gone with Brian Chandler had he got off to a better start in the first race, or restart anyway, but never really got the chance to. Now though, he's in front and he can control the pace of the race a little bit more. And as we saw in race 1, despite the slipstreaming opportunities that this circuit presents, it's not easy to overtake here in Pembrey, so Chandler is going to have his work cut out to get that lead away. And walking back Pickford, looking back at the Clive Powell's and Cameron Thompson battle. That's already losing a bit of touch there with the leading trio, making their way out of the S's for the second time with the number 99 car, Joseph Marshall-Burks, out in front. He has a race victory in this equivalent race from Brands Hatch last time out, the second race of the weekend. That, though, came after a mistake for James Kell, just after a safety car restart, handed him the race lead. Well, this time, he's done it all on his own merit with a brilliant start, but Brian Chandler is already starting to turn the screw now, isn't he? He's applying the pressure, trying to retake this race lead through the dauntingly quick right-hander at Woodlands. Easy flat out in one of these well-planted Mark III MX-5s. Looking back here from Brian Chandler's car, we've put the rear-facing camera on his car because we expected to see lots of cars behind him, but now there is one car in front of him, and he doesn't like that, does he? Look, he's trying to get this lead away again, trying to weave around and distract Joe Marshall-Burks as they head down the pit straight, but Marshall-Burks having none of it, gets into the corner well. Then it's Alex Miller third, Pickford still fourth, I think. I did see Simon Fleet was starting to cut his way through the traffic though, and he's, I think, already into 6th place, but Brian Chandler attacking for the race lead again, clobbers the curb through the left-hander at DeBenny, and then through this curving left-hander behind the paddock. into the S's. Good overtaking opportunity. This one of the best on the circuit, but he's not close enough to do it. Marshall Burks is quick enough through the preceding couple of corners to actually pull a few car lengths advantage now over Chandler, who takes a much tighter line there through the second part of the S's. It's interesting, actually, we're watching the drivers there all weekend, and there are a couple of ways to attack that sequence of corners. Some of them prioritising the entry to the S's, and some of them prioritising the exit down towards Brooklands. On to the final lap, though, is going Brian Chandler, who we will definitely see back on the top step of the podium in the future in some form of MX-5 racing, I'm sure. The car receiving a shakedown this weekend, really, more than anything else, but it's clearly been a positive shakedown because despite the rather more intense battling that he had to survive in race 2, maybe than he was expecting, the first and third races of the weekend have been dominant victories. He won the first one by 5.2 seconds. He looks set to win this one by nearly 10 seconds. So, okay, as I said, he was helped by other people running into each other, running into trouble further back, but he still had to keep the car on the island, still had to keep the pace up, which he's done. And this glorified test session for Brian Chandler has, I'm sure, left him feeling fairly positive about his prospects for the rest of the season. Hopefully we'll see him out in the MX-5 Super Cup. He's not out in the opening rounds this weekend because they're taking place as we speak over at Snetterton. He is hopefully going to make an appearance later on this season. And with a car that clearly is working well, he should be a podium and race victory contender. Certainly a victory contender here at Pembrey because he's going to do the hat-trick again. It's 3 from 3, it's 6 from 6 appearances in the MX-5 Super Cup, and having never been beaten, the winning run continues for Brian Chandler, and he takes the victory in the final race here in Wales. James Kell salvages something from what's still been a disappointing weekend with a second place finish in only his second race finish of the season. Third place will go the way of Joseph Marshall Burke, some 14.4 seconds off the lead. Darren Kelly's fourth, that's his best finish, with Cameron Thompson, Liz Walton sixth in the end, and Clyde Powell's seventh, but we believe Thompson has been given a post-race disqualification for contact earlier on, so Liz Walton will inherit her first ever top 5.
3 out of 3, Bri.
3 out of 3, yeah, brand new car. The boys back at the workshop done good, didn't they? So, yeah, didn't touch it all weekend, really, so good car.
James, from last position to second, how on earth did you manage that?
Just waited for everyone else to take themselves out and then drove through. Pretty much, just sat around and just had a nice little drive.
You look like you had fire in your belly during that round, though.
Yeah, well, I was a bit sick after the first 2 rounds just because getting taken out and yeah, the issues you have with the car, but just waited and just drove around and then just picked off people when I could and slotted into second and was surprised when I saw Brian in front of me, so yeah, just kept going.
Well, it's been a fantastic trio of races here from Pembrey with lots of action throughout, and the action really started right from the word go with this big shunt taking Jeremy Crook out for the remainder of the weekend. Thankfully though, contact was not necessarily the order of the day. There was some fantastic racing all weekend long and 3 race victories from 3 for Brian Chandler. Well, join us next time at Cadwell Park to see who comes out on top there.